Hello and welcome, everybody. Today we will provide a presentation of 8x8 for Microsoft Teams, our deep integration into Teams that enables PSTN calling within the native Microsoft Teams environment using 8x8's direct routing. We will follow up with a demonstration of servicing a call in the Teams environment, as well as using Teams as a certified endpoint with 8x8 Contact Center. Finally, for those that would like a quick overview of the configuration and administrative piece, stick around until the end and we'll provide a high-level overview on that as well. Let's go ahead and jump in. So why Microsoft Teams is important? Well, these numbers tell a story about Microsoft Teams. Today, 270 million is the latest estimate of daily active users on Microsoft Teams, which, by the way, is expected to rise during 2022 and beyond. That's amazing given how long it normally takes new enterprise software to take hold. That makes Teams an important new front door to the digital working life. The 85% figure is from research late last year, where we found that a large majority of companies want comprehensive communications within Teams. And finally, more than 3/4 of organizations are likely to integrate Microsoft Teams with third-party telephony providers such as 8x8. Which means if you're using Microsoft Teams for collaboration, then your best direct routing option is 8x8 for Microsoft Teams because it is the only solution that offers a true native Teams experience. So there are 4 ways to connect Microsoft Teams to the PSTN. The first 2 are bots and browsers. Both bots and browsers are require that you install either an extension or software on the client PC, which from an administrative standpoint can become onerous, especially in large volume implementations where you're dealing with hundreds or thousands of users. With some of these, the end user experience is less than optimal. It becomes a little bit disjointed, which sometimes affects user adoption. The direct routing option is what 8x8 uses, is a native Teams experience. So there's no software to install, no bots or extensions needed, and users continue to use their native Microsoft Teams desktops or mobile apps to make and receive PSTN calls, and it's centralized management for IT, so it makes it easy to not only get started, but to for moves, adds, and changes. So 8x8 Voice for Microsoft Teams is a cloud-based direct routing service to make and receive PSTN calls using the Teams app. It offers a native Teams experience with enterprise-grade telephony plus contact center capabilities. You get a full set of enterprise-grade telephony capabilities that include full PSTN callings for Teams users, knowledge workers, and contact center agents to make and receive calls to fixed lines and mobile phones. Unlimited calling plans to 48 countries, plus PSTN replacement services in 43 countries. Out-of-the-box native integration with 25 plus business applications, end-to-end 8x8 analytics for calls initiated by both Teams and non-Teams users where an Office 365 license is not in place. And it's all underpinned by our industry-leading uptime and availability of the 8x8's proven network with money-back SLAs. We augment Teams with more economical calling plans, especially for customers that make frequently local or international calls, and extend PSTN calling to countries where Microsoft does not yet offer calling plans, so that Microsoft customers can get the most out of their Office 365 licensing. With 8x8 Contact Center users, X2 and above, we also include electronic fax as well as SMS and MMS for our US and Canadian-based customers. So 8x8 Voice for Teams integrates with the Microsoft phone system and negates the need for the Microsoft calling plans. Our Voice for Teams solution provides the complete underlying voice communications layer for services to Microsoft Teams users, whether they're knowledge workers or contact center agents. In fact, it brings PSTN voice services for all users in an organization, whether they're Teams users or not. For example, you could have basic phones in a factory floor or non-team phones in lobbies, conference room warehouses, and places where you don't want to necessarily have a Teams phone or an expensive Microsoft E5 license for Teams calling. 8x8 voice for Microsoft Teams supports all those PSTN calling scenarios. Organizations using 8x8 voice from Microsoft Teams receive enterprise-grade telephony features, unlimited local and international calling to 48 countries based on the 8x8 calling plan being used, full PSTN replacement across 48 countries, which means customers can extend Teams PSTN calling to all those 48 countries or add 8x8 calling plans in countries where Microsoft does not yet offer. We also offer local DIDs plus local toll-free and non-geographic numbers in over 120 countries. And when you add an 8x8 voice gateway, you can extend the PSTN calling to those 120 countries and get the most out of your Microsoft Teams deployment. This makes it especially suitable for organizations with hundreds or even thousands of users dispersed globally. Microsoft calling plans and PSTN cloud services currently extend to 24 countries. In 2020, we added China, Greece, Kazakhstan, Malaysia, Peru, Turkey, and South Africa. In 2021, Argentina, Japan, Russia, Puerto Rico, Panama, Philippines, and there are more to come. We are proud to be the first recognized industry leader to achieve contact center certification for Microsoft Teams. 8x8 offers omnichannel contact center capabilities that is fully integrated with Teams. Our certified contact center for Teams makes it easy to boost agent performance, simplify customer engagement workflows, and increase collaboration across the organization. By allowing sales, service, and support agents to quickly connect, call, and collaborate with other experts, and resolve customer issues faster using the Teams app as their preferred endpoint. Key features allow contact center agents to accept incoming contact center calls on Teams, empowering agents to manage customer interactions, as well as to allow supervisors to capture call details and key metrics. Contact center agents can see non-contact center users' presence and availability, whether on a Teams endpoint or an 8x8 endpoint. Gain rich contact center insights with full reporting and analytics into call quality, performance metrics, activity history, and speech analytics. Use 8x8 call recording to support regulatory compliance, and integrate out of the box with more than 25 third-party business apps such as Salesforce, Zendesk, NetSuite, and Microsoft Dynamics 365, just to name a few. You can automatically screen pop customer cases, contacts, log calls, and attach information, including recording links to any customer record, and leverage AIML with 8x8's quality management speech analytics. 8x8 Voice for Teams users now have all their business messaging available in Teams. Organizations found that most employees working remotely were increasingly using personal mobile phones to send SMS or MMS messages with clients, patients, vendors, and other employees. This can potentially expose the company to legal security and compliance risks. With our latest release of 8x8 Voice for Microsoft Teams, Teams users can send and receive SMS or MMS messages or electronic faxes from Teams using their 8x8 business number. Now, that is hugely beneficial for Teams users since they get an integrated message experience. Because all business SMS, MMS, faxes, voicemail messages, and recordings are all sent and received inside the Teams app. It also mitigates the security risk and compliance issues associated with using personal mobile phones or even untested third-party messaging apps. Teams users can also view and listen to call recordings, business voicemails, or group voicemails if the user is a member of a call queue or ring group. The 8x8 Voice for Teams adds permissions-based self-service access for Teams users, which reduces IT intervention. It gives Teams users quick access to their 8x8 features and settings so they can change voicemail recordings, their pins, or adjust call handling rules, or log in or out of assigned call queues with access to analytics. All this takes place directly inside the Teams app without having to switch to another app. 8x8 Voice for Teams provides a simple, straightforward implementation tool that can be configured in minutes, not hours and days. We take all the complexity out of adding PSTN connectivity within the Microsoft Teams environment. There are no network complexities such as SBCs or SIP trunking to deal with. 8x8 Voice for Microsoft Teams takes care of all this for you. Once the initial setup is complete, adding and synchronizing users in the 8x8 orchestration panel can be done with just a few mouse clicks. Once the sync process is complete, Teams users can begin making and receiving PSTN calls within their native Microsoft Teams mobile or desktop clients. From a Microsoft perspective, once your Office 365 licenses is voice enabled, which requires adding a Microsoft Teams standalone voice license to E1 through E3 licenses or A1 through A3 licenses, or Microsoft Teams Essentials or Microsoft 365 business licenses, you are good to go. Note, Microsoft Teams standalone voice license is included with the E5 licensing. In any case, you do not need a Microsoft calling plan as this is included with your 8x8 XCAS licensing. Here are just a few case studies and testimonials and more available if you're interested. Let your 8x8 partner or account executive know, and we will be happy to provide additional details. One of the key reasons 8x8 is selected by global organizations is our ability to cover all their employee base wherever they're located. It is super important to offer services with the highest reliability and quality as only we can do, in as many locations as possible. Our march towards providing carrier replacement services in more than 50 countries and territories continues strong. Earlier this year, we were the first to launch in China. And as I noted earlier, we recently announced Russia, Japan, Puerto Rico, and many others, and with more to come. So in conclusion, 8x8 is an enterprise cloud communications platform with unlimited local and international calls to 48 countries, which extends the Teams PSTN in countries where Microsoft does not offer calling plans. Effortless implementation, simple administration interface allows you to bulk synchronization of Microsoft Teams users to 8x8, and there's no software to download or manage. We augment Teams reporting with advanced analytics for PSTN telephony and contact center for team calls initiated over 8x8's network. It's a consistent experience for Teams users. Teams remains the core user interface and user experience. There's no change to user experience whatsoever. They simply make and receive calls using Teams. It's more than just direct routing or SIP trunking. It's with native integration with contact center, pre-built integrations for major CRM and business productivity applications to support Microsoft Teams, and it's all underpinned by an industry-leading uptime and ability of the 8x8 network. With that, we're going to go ahead and provide some call demonstrations, both starting with just native Teams, and then we'll send some calls into contact center within the Salesforce environment. We'll then proceed with a quick overview of the orchestration and administrative piece for 8x8 Voice for Microsoft Teams. Okay, folks. So for those of you that are familiar with the Microsoft Teams environment, this should look very familiar to you. It is native Teams, and within the Teams environment, you'll see you'll see a couple additional changes from what you don't see without the direct routing integration. First of all, you're going to see that this user now has a 10-digit phone number associated with their account. So then now this tells us that they're enabled for PSTN calling, and we'll go ahead and make a call in shortly. But you have much of all the PBX features within the 8-byte environment, including the ability once you're making a call to park calls. But you'll see this added widget here as well. And this added widget is the 8-byte widget that gives you the additional functionality to access your SMS, MMS messages, to make or receive those, access your voicemail. All that's available to you here. So this is your activity panel that has your logs, if you will, of various messaging that took place. You have your full dashboard here as well. This gives you the capability of accessing your call queues and logging in and out of call queues if you have call queues enabled. Call queues are the ability to route calls into groups of users. We call it Call Center Lite, if you will. So you have the ability to log in and out of queues and access the analytics for each one of those queues if you've been given access to that as well. You have your access to all your voicemails here, where you can, of course, play, delete, mark as unread, and download those messages. As we mentioned, your full SMS capabilities are here. So all of your SMS capabilities are right there. You can mark as read or hide these conversations. They're bolded if they haven't been listened to. How many threads that are in each one you're seeing here. Access to your call recordings. Your call recordings are all available through the Teams interface as well, right through here. So you can play your messages, delete them, and download those messages. Of course, you can filter by phone number as well. Your settings menu, and depending on how this is set up from an administrative standpoint, based on rules-based access control, you can give your users the ability to make changes on their own. So some self-help if you choose to enable this for these users. So for instance, your call forwarding settings can take place here. You're changing your music on hold rules. So your call recordings and what's available here are all based on administrative rights and access. Of course, your profile settings here will have all your details on, as well as all the self-help documentation that are all available to you here. Everything outside of that is everything that you've come to know and expect out of Teams. It's the native Teams environment with the additional enhanced functionality that you have here, as I went over. So I'm going to go back over to the call menu here, and I'm going to send a call into Teams here. So let's go ahead and do that. Let me go ahead and make a quick call into the environment. And we'll go ahead and make that call right here from here. So as that call rings in, you're going to see the standard Teams pop-up, but this will be from a PSTN call. And there it is. There's my PSTN, my pop-up, my Teams pop-up. I'm going to go ahead and answer this call. And now I have my Teams window that has all will have access to my call control here. So I'm going to go ahead and I can bring up my dial pad. This is important if you're calling into an IVR, an auto attendant, you need to enter digits. Anywhere along the way to any services that require you to enter DTMF or touch tones, if you will. So that's available to you here. You have all your mid-call features as well. So I have the ability, of course, to place a call on hold. I can do a blind transfer or a consultative transfer. I can park a call here as well. And I can turn on live captions if I wanted to as well here, which is neat. And of course, I've got the ability to mute my call as well. That's available to me here. So very straightforward, native Teams experience, very simple. I'm going to go ahead and leave this call. And of course, this is going to show up in my call log. There it is. At any point, I can call this user back, add them to my speed dial or my contact list that become apparent here. Or if it's a nuisance caller, I can block those calls as well. So there I have one of my my external contacts. If I want to click the call, I can do that as well. You'll notice up here, there's these shared lines. So we do support Teams delegation, in that if the classic use case here is if you have an executive and an executive admin, and the executive admin is taking or making calls on behalf of the executive, that's where those shared line appearance usage. So we support the delegation feature within Microsoft Teams. Finally, we're going to provide a brief overview of the simplicity of configuring and managing your Teams integration within our XCaaS environment.
No, we will focus on the 8x8 configuration and orchestration piece. The initial setup of integrating team services is just like installing any other third-party application in a Microsoft environment. This includes assigning users and groups, configuring single sign-on, and assigning the requisite Microsoft licensing. Note this initial step requires global admin credentials that will be authenticated by Microsoft. At no point will 8x8 ever know any of your Microsoft passwords. Once the initial setup is complete, you may choose to assign subadmins as well. So let's begin by configuring the user account licenses within the admin console. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and start this. I'm going to select users. I'm going to go ahead and edit Grady Archie's user that's been created. I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to assign a 8x8 XCAS license for this particular user. Then I'm simply going to click Enable Microsoft Integration. It's that simple. I'm then going to go ahead and open up voice settings here. And I'm going to go ahead and assign a phone number to Grady as well. And I'm going to select Save. And it's that simple. That's all the configuration that's done within the admin console. I'm next going to then go in and set up the actual PBX services. Now, this is the orchestration piece that's unique to 8x8. So we're going to go ahead and start that. This is how you can configure the integration. Okay, so I'm going to go up to the Services tab here. And I'm going to configure all the basic information that's very obvious here, the country and the state. I'm then going to go in, and there's some house cleaning that needs to be done here as to whether you're going to use 8x8 voicemail or Teams voicemail, Teams music on hold, 8x8 music on hold. This is something that our deployment team can consult with you on the nuances of choosing one over the other. You then can decide whether you are going to allow your users to use Teams call forwarding. So again, we can consult with you on that. And it's simply, once you've done that basic configuration, you add your PBX. My PBX is now been successfully configured, and I'm going to go ahead and just enable the sync process to occur. And once that's now enabled, I can go ahead and save this off. And it's really that simple. Okay. Next, we're going to set up the team services. Let's go ahead and take a look at what that looks like, that process. So now I'm going to go up to my Teams tab here. I'm going to enable sync services. Once again, here's where it's going to be authenticated through Microsoft. And you're just going to go through that process. And once the authentication occurs, this syncing begins. So now we're syncing up the licensed Teams users with the 8x8 users. This is what we call the orchestration piece. Team services is now enabled. So I'll go to the next step, and that's done. Now I simply need to sync my users. Okay, let's begin this. So I'm going to go up to the user tab, and I'm just going to hit sync now. Again, I'm going to be authenticated in. Go next. And all the users will be listed here where there was a proper mapping of your Teams licensing to your 8x8 licensing. You can see here this green dot indicates that all systems go. These little icons that are grayed out to the left will give you the ability to see call logs that are processing through successfully, as well as any of the SIP logs that are required or that are taking place between the two environments. And it's really that simple, folks. That's it. Thank you.